Both you guys played. Both you guys, Iowa, each played Wisconsin within the past week. I guess how does that help you prepare for them, knowing that you each played a similar opponent recently?
Yeah, well, I think there's familiarity with what Wisconsin does, and you can see how your opponent maybe attacked them in their schemes or how they guarded some of their offense. So you have that correlation that you can lean on. But for us, we're watching film, really throughout. In some cases, going way back, looking for certain things and certain tendencies. So, but it helps a little bit, I think. But I don't know how much you can't just take everything right from that one game.
And then Amari and Devin both, feeling under the weather leading into the last game. Just how are they feeling now?
Yeah, better. Both of them have been working really hard to get healthier, and sometimes that's sitting still and resting, right? And but they were here yesterday, and were able to get up and move and do some things. So that was great progress.
With Devin, can you give a little more context, like how the last hour of the game went for you? I saw him out there in warm-ups. He looked pretty labored, but to go from thinking he might play to not having him, and then he's still on the bench. How does all that kind of come together?
Yeah, well, I think he tried. That's the great thing, and says something about him. He tried to get out there and tried to warm up and tried to see if he could, give something to the team during the game. And I said this, that conversation between him and our training staff ultimately is the final decision. But you can't sit there and say the kid didn't try. He went out there and worked up a sweat and was trying to find a way to go and just couldn't quite get there. So, and then, he had a really good voice. I thought his engagement during the game was good. He was talking to guys and talking in huddles and stuff. So, I think he certainly tried to impact the game, sitting on the bench and helping as best he could, which, says a lot about him. But it's hard because it's an illness, it's not an injury. That's different. So he fought and tried to get out there, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Did you consider, because it was an illness, not letting him be on the bench? Worry about it spreading and things like that?
No, honestly, at that point, I was trying to think of solutions because that's a pretty important piece, to be missing. And my focus was strictly on what adjustments do we need to make? How do we best set ourselves up to be successful for that game? And I got great faith and trust in our training staff to make those determinations on, what happens after that point. If they would have felt like anybody else was in jeopardy, then maybe they take different, precautionary measures, but clearly they didn't. So we weren't going to go cast him away, right? He's part of our leadership team. He's a huge, important part of our team. He's got a great voice, and I appreciate him using it, like he did during the game.
With Puff, and obviously him getting the start and kind of what he gave you, he now has clarity on the rest of his season here, where he doesn't have to be waiting for a ruling to tell him if he's going to. How has that impacted him? Does that change anything for you guys going forward, knowing from day to day, Puff's definitely going to be here?
I think it's got to be somewhat of a relief for him personally, I would imagine. I think for us, we were just operating under the assumption that he was going to be available. We weren't necessarily operating under a day-to-day. And I think he missed some time once he got here because he got injured, and I think that was that impacted him. But I would imagine, he was doing stuff on game day. There was things that he had to spend a lot of time on to get to this point where now that stuff is over and he can just play and be a part of the team. And so I would imagine that's a big relief for him.
Coach, this is a bit of a different question, but I noticed in some of your post-game conferences, you keep mentioning about how you have this sports science team. So I kind of wanted a little bit more clarity on how they kind of contribute to the team, how you interact with them, Just kind of like walk me through that.
Yeah, so we have a performance team that's made up of sports science, nutrition, training staff, strength conditioning, and basically they huddle up regularly to discuss kind of where our team is, physically, mentally, all of that stuff. And then I lean on them to get an indication of, hey, here's maybe where we are from a recovery standpoint. Maybe we need a little extra time, or we need to be shorter on the court, or we're monitoring player load. We have all season long with some of the wearable technology we use, and so we have some projections on kind of where we want to be based on years of data for this time of year. So you're still utilizing coach instinct and things in practice, and you got to accomplish some certain things in how you prepare. But I think we have unbelievable resources at Ohio State. I'd be foolish not to utilize those and helping us plan and helping us kind of map out, schedule how much time on the court, what we need to do for recovery, and ultimately the goal is to best position our guys to be their best on game day. And sports science plays a huge role in that. It's important in our recovery. It's important in our practice. Like, we have live data in practice that I'm asking for and getting in real time as we're trying to monitor this concept of player load.
And then how would you say these players interact with these specialists on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, we have someone from our sports science department at our practice daily to help with the execution of the wearable technology and monitoring that information. They work, that group I talked about collaborates, regularly on many different things. And so there's a presence around our program and interaction that exists. And some guys lean into the space a little more than some others. We do a bulk of it as a team, but there is some space for guys to utilize it. Some of the information may be more if that helps them individually. Yeah.
As far as sports science and recovery goes, how's Junie doing?
Yeah, getting better and better each day. I think that's the encouraging thing. With this injury, there was never this specific date. There's just kind of, I guess, a threshold that has to be met, and so it's a day-to-day thing for him, but there's been progress, and he is working so hard to get back, as quickly as he can.
What is the injury? Is it the hand? Is it the finger?
Yeah, it was a finger injury. If I'm sure some big words that could help describe exactly what it is, right? But I just know he had a pretty good finger injury, and had to he needed some time.
Same thing with Brandon with the foot. What is it that he's been dealing with, and where is he on his, as you've talked about, you think you'll see him by the end of the season, and you're kind of running out of days? Yeah.
End of the season's quickly approaching. I think this kind of the end of this week should give us a good indication of where we're at, and maybe we can start to predict when that return happens. But as far as I'm being told from our team, he's progressing well and hitting markers along the way, that there haven't been any setbacks, I guess is the best way to describe it. So I'm still hopeful we can get him back by the end of the season.
A fracture with him in his foot?
Yeah, he had a foot injury. I don't know, again, the specifics. We should have Tony. We'll put Tony on the hot seat up here to I don't know the exact specifics, Adam, but he's trust me, if he could play, he'd play. He wants to be out there in the worst way, and it's just he's just not able to do it. Needed time to heal, but is again trending in the right direction. I think that's the encouraging thing. I know we've been dealt a tough hand with some injuries and sickness and all of that stuff, but I think we're starting to turn the corner with some of this and trending in a positive direction, and better late than never, right? So that's the bright side of some of this, certainly.
What have you made of the way that Iowa plays under Ben? I feel like we had a pretty good
Yeah, I think it's a team that really passes the ball well, plays well together. Sturts is a great player, but they got others. They got other good pieces that seem to really be playing well to their roles, and I think you can see a chemistry on the court that they've developed that's helped them play at a high level, really on both sides of the ball. Sturts is he's the main engine that kind of makes them run, but they got some other really good pieces, and you can see on film the chemistry that they have.
Obviously, you played a top-tier defense in Michigan State on Sunday. Now you're playing the top-scoring defense tomorrow in Iowa. I guess just what gives you confidence that guys outside of Bruce will be able to step up offensively?
Yeah, well, I think we're due after last game. I think that's part of it. We were able to manufacture some really good looks against a good defense. There's no question, and we got to continue to do that. Our execution's key for that. Our movement, is important. I thought there were times in the second half when we got fatigued, we stopped moving as well offensively. That happened to us in the Virginia game as well. So, being shorthanded plays a role in that. So we got to figure out how to combat that a little bit. Iowa's pace of play is on the slower end of things. So that'll be a little different than what we just faced. But nonetheless, they've done a really good job defensively, done a good job turning teams over. We got to take care of the ball. It'll be really important for us offensively. But we've been able to manufacture shots, playing inside out, and a lot of ball and body movement, and I think that's going to be critical tomorrow night.
In the past that you guys have shown an ability to respond after losses. What qualities do you think your team has that allow them to bounce back so quickly?
Toughness. They're connected. Next play mentality, this is a resilient group. Consider all the things that we've dealt with over the last couple months. It's a really resilient group. So they're close. That's part of how you have a resilient group, I think, is you got to have chemistry. But we train for this. We work really hard in our program from the day we step foot on campus all the way through the very end. And I think that toughness has helped us respond, and we work on building that in the off season.
This game tomorrow is a significant resume opportunity as well, and I know you know the rest of the schedule. I know you don't look past the one that's right ahead of you, but does that at some point start to become a little bit more of like a pregame conversation? Like, hey guys, we don't have a quad one win yet, and this is an opportunity. That's the thing that's holding us back. Do those conversations start to happen when you get toward the end of the season, and there's still that one thing that you need?
I don't think getting that specific before we go out on the floor really adds any value. I think our guys, they know that right now every win is important, but they know that there's big wins available, and that our focus right now is beating Iowa. That's it. I also know that there's a reality that in a week we could have 2 quad one wins, regardless. That's kind of the way that the net works, right? Things fluctuate. There's a few teams that are really close to shifting around. So we control what we could control. And right now that's how we prepare for Iowa and ultimately how we play against Iowa. That's our focus. But I understand. I understand all that. And, yeah, trust me, there's a couple teams I'm rooting for a little bit harder than others. I'm aware, but mostly just on how it pertains to, our resume. That's it. Outside of all the other stuff, there's so much basketball to be played that, I know our resume, and I know some things that could help it, rooting for those things to happen, right? And then outside of that, it's tunnel vision on what we can control, and that's how our team is right now. And that's part of why I think we've been able to respond, really well, is because we're focused on the task at hand, and right now it is all hands on deck that are available, for Iowa.
Last thing, with Amari and not being able to practice the day before the game, and then he's able to give you what he gave you on Sunday. What is does you just explain a little bit like how that impacts a player's productivity and like ability to be productive in a game when they're sick the day before and they can't play and they're much okay the next day?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw it, right? Like, you know, he wasn't himself, and you know, it's illness works. Like, it hit him earlier than it hit Devin, right? I mean, it's just some of that's just luck, I guess, you know, and he was able at least to kind of get through it earlier and able to play. And he went out there and fought and tried, but he wasn't his best, and he knows that. And I appreciate him trying, just like I appreciate Devin trying. It just his kind of clock was a little later, right? If the game was the day before, Amari wouldn't have been able to play. You know, that's just kind of the way this stuff works. So I think we've seen it. We've seen Tilly when he hasn't been able to. It even affects older players. Like, we've seen Tilly when he hasn't been able to practice for an extended period of time. It's hard for him to go out and play at his highest level. I think that's the case for, you know, really anybody, especially, you know, young players. I imagine Amari, you know, hasn't gone through that scenario really much. So what I love about our team, to a man, is they all care deeply about Ohio State and they care deeply about us winning, and they're trying everything they can to be available for their team. To a man, everybody's doing that. So that's a good thing for us, because like I said, I'm hopeful, prayerful that we're going to turn the corner on some of this stuff here, like really, really soon. And if we do that, and we get everybody, you know, available and kind of moving in the same direction, watch out. Like, I mean, I really believe that. So, yeah, the stuff's just, it's hard, but, you know, it's not exclusive to us. That's why we focus on what we can control. And that's why we go out there and we compete. We play tough. We play together, no matter what. And, you know, we did that. But yesterday we watched film on the things we didn't do well enough, you know, against Michigan State, because there were some things that we can control that we could do better regardless of, you know, it doesn't matter who's playing. So right now we can control how we practice today. And that's our biggest focus before we head over to Iowa and what's going to be a big-time game. All right, thanks, guys.